But prior to that, if any of the panelists have anything else they would like to add first, also feel free.
I feel like I didn't do my role at Pride Foundation justice, and I'm adding some stuff on. The work that I do at Utopia, and I feel like the work that we all do, wearing different hats, right? And when you see like trans work, you tend to see the same people, right? You tend, because we're overburdened, we're burnt out, and if we're not doing the work, nobody else is going to do it, right? Transform Washington started as a public education campaign during the anti-trans bathroom bills back in 2015-16. That work has grown to include political advocacy, a lot of relationship building, right? Like you can't do this work when you don't know the person that you're doing this work with, right? On a personal level. And I don't want to show up to a meeting and it's an update meeting. I want to know about, my community, my sibling in arms. I want to know how I can be there for them when they need me, and vice versa. And so we do a lot of leadership development through relationship building. But I feel like the two words that would describe my work is research justice, right? We do polling and research where we share the messages. I would say like either positive or oppositional messaging, and see where the general public lands as far as what resonates with them. And then we use those learnings to sort of influence our public education efforts, but not taking messaging and polling research as the word of God. But we work to uplift, I would say, cultural and experiential knowledge, which is often seen as not valid, right, compared to mainstream and academia, right? And we know that the stories that we have and that we collect as community members, we collect it in a way that honors the person that we're collecting stories from, and that's not extractive, as opposed to the way academia and mainstream organizations collect our data, right? And I think Brene Brown says it best when they say our stories are data with the soul, and that's the bulk of my work. I lift up the experiential and cultural knowledge that is often seen as not important when it comes to building political power.
Thank you. I think you did justice now. It looks like we have a question in the chat from Vita. This is, not Vita. This is Vita's wife, Catherine. I am a naturopathic physician and would like to volunteer medical services. What is the best way to get involved with one of your organizations? My clinic has been doing COVID testing, so I know how to do the swabs and have some of my own PPE. I'm putting on my video because it's laundry cleaning day here at home. Come on, productivity. Anyone want to answer that first? Have some thoughts? Yeah?
I can answer. Also, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, right? That's ISIS. I would say like the best way to, I guess, put your like volunteer efforts to good use is like meeting people where they are, right? Like if you think about sex workers, don't wait for them to come to your clinic because stigma is real, right? Right, Tippa? And I know Tippa, I won't talk about a lot of that work because that's what Tippa does at Utopia, but with Toxin, I would say we're having the Taking Back Pride today, and a lot of people could benefit from that testing, right? So going out to community events and not waiting for folks to show up at your door.
I just wanted to add on, thank you, Catherine, for offering that. If you could please, like, maybe drop your contact, and I think that's something that we could probably reach out to you directly and see how we can arrange that to better serve the communities that we work with. Awesome. Thank you so much. I just saw it.
Right. Perfect. Yes, ourselves, as part of Ingersoll Gender Center, we have a healthcare provider database that has like over 150 providers across the state of Washington, that is available for community members to access, as well as a listserv that has like over 500 providers across the state of Washington as a way to share resources and get connected on these sorts of things. So that's another way to get plugged in with Ingersoll. And thank you for dropping your contact, Kevin. Does anyone else have any questions? I'll ask one. For any of the organizations, can you share visions that you might have about what the world and your work could look like on the other side of the COVID crisis? So it's very imaginative, hard to think far out from there, but if you have anything you might be thinking of, what could that look like?
So I don't mind going. I feel like for myself, so I'll talk a bit about kind of what our org does right now. I feel like this question kind of fits really well into kind of the work that I do. So at FOCAN, I am the Trans Economic Empowerment Coordinator, and I just help facilitate a group of Black and trans folks called the Black Trans Leadership Incubator. And it's really just focused on trying to create a dedicated space for Black and trans folks where they're able to have their opinions, their thoughts, and their feelings, and their experiences heard. So I feel like for me, I think it's important to, I think even going off of what Isa said, is that we oftentimes don't really validate the experiences and the lives of trans folks. So for me, I'd like to be able to have organizations or have spaces where they're able to like acknowledge and interact with trans folks and gender non-conforming folks and people of color and other folks and Black folks, and are just able to like see them as entire complex human beings that have histories that's valid, and some may have existed in this way or in that way, but just giving people space to be heard. So I feel like for me, my goal with this work is to be able to have space for people to be heard. So it may not sound a lot, but maybe it does. But yeah.
No, thanks for sharing. That is actually is quite a lot, considering those spaces are especially not. Most spaces are made to specifically do the opposite of that work. So, anyone else? Yeah, Tepa?
I can go. This is something I've definitely been thinking about, like myself, and for the work of Utopia. Trying to imagine what services might look like in a post-COVID-19 perspective, taking in and considering everything that our community has gone through during this time. And for me, personally, I think a lot about, again, like the sex worker community, and recognizing the struggles of sex workers during this time, and how there are very little to no services that have been able to, that were put out to assist sex workers, most of all street-based sex workers, who are the most marginalized in the hierarchy of sex work. And I think about unemployment, and I think about when a stay-at-home order is issued, and like street-based sex workers are not able to conduct work as they usually are able to provide for their families, to pay for medical or whatever reason that they may need to do sex work for. I think this definitely puts a lot of things, like sheds a lot of light on like the exacerbation of like the working conditions of sex work, and how even for myself, like I need to do better in the work that I do, that I need to be prepared for situations like this. How can I help my community not only in the recovery coming out of COVID-19, but also to be prepared that I can continue to support sex workers when a situation like this occurs again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tippa. Isis, do you have anything to add?
I always have something to add, but I'll keep it. I would say that question is tricky for me because the conditions of this pandemic has always existed for for a lot of our siblings. And when I think about Black communities, when I think about people who are living with chronic illnesses or are disabled, right? This isn't anything new for folks. The vision I see, I would say, I see a lot more young people leading. I see a lot more young people leading with the backing of elders or yelders or the Wisdom Council, as Alphabet Alliance of Color calls it. I also see Black and brown trans women and femmes leading, and it's time for that to happen. It's exhausting and it's tiring to be a part of a community that always lifts up the for us by us model, yet does not let trans women, Black and brown trans women and femmes, do trans work and lead trans work. And we see it happening in Seattle with what happened last Monday with the Seattle City Council, not lifting up those who are most impacted, right? Which are Black trans sex workers, right? And we see it at the state level as well when there are policies being introduced and passed that aren't important to. They're good policies, but it's not what we need right now, right? As far as Black and brown communities. So my vision is I see a lot of the Black and brown led, trans led organizations decriminalizing sex work at Washington, at the state level. And I see more Black trans women and femmes as EDs of organizations. But also I see a lot of pain, and I see a lot of like global grief, and people, our own people, doing what we need to do to help folks heal from the most recent trauma on top of the trauma of like intergenerational trauma that folks have been carrying, right, for generations. So there's good and bad there, but we have capable organizations like everyone at the table to take care of folks when needed. So we'll be fine.
Al, can I just add on to that a little bit more? Everyone, and then I'll stop talking. Thank you, Isis, for mentioning that. I just wanted to make the connection that with everything that I've mentioned about how the sex worker community has been like disproportionately impacted, not only throughout decades, but also especially during this time, and I think a lot about like decriminalization, more so now than ever, that the only way we can improve healthcare opportunities and financial opportunities available to sex workers is decriminalization. It's a full decriminalization. Because our BIPOC communities are mostly impacted by this, who have suffered like economically from long history of like family separation, redlining, and all the issues that they've gone through, and that has pushed BIPOC communities to informal economies. And people end up in sex work either by choice or circumstantially. That is, if they're not being trafficked. And circumstantially, you think about people that are there by choice and they are doing sex work free of any economic pressures. But people who are there circumstantially, like I think about like not having the ability to say no to sex work right now, despite the dangerous conditions of having to do sex work in the middle of COVID-19 crisis, because they still have families to provide for. And that brings me to like really think about the decrim work a lot more, that, you know, it's not something that we need to, we can't wait on decrim anymore. Like decrim needs to happen now. And like right now, because we cannot keep waiting until like another situation like this occurs again to see our sex worker community continue to suffer. In order for us to improve and do better by our sex worker community, and decrim needs to happen right now. It's the best form of harm reduction there is.
Thank you for that addition, Tepa. Sully, do you have a response to?
Yeah. First of all, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's very important, and just really want to echo what Tepa and Isis said. I think for Ingersoll ourselves being a predominantly white organization, really uplifting and focusing all our work on Black and Indigenous and people of color within the trans community is one of the most important things I think we need to work on ourselves for the future. So trying to figure out what kind of healing groups, whether that is through our support groups, what that would look like, and really just centering Black and Indigenous and people of color within our work. It's something we are still working on, and it's been a struggle. So I think for us, that is the most important thing in the future, and getting those resources to these communities which are most at risk. So, just want to echo what you said.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat. It says, hi, I am fairly new to Seattle and want to get involved in organizing, but also expanding my own sense of community here. I'm currently a national service worker at Earth Corps. They have been collaborating with a farm space run by the Black Farmers Collective here. I believe food access could be an asset to organizing, uplifting communities, and interested if this is something that already exists within any trans-led organizations or could be. Tepa, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about your food program, what that looks like. Thank you for that question.
I actually wrote that question. I don't work as a farmer or a justice worker, but I think I could get involved in some way to make that happen and make that work within organizations here. So our food program, it's in partnership with Pacific Coast Fruit Company here in Kent, Washington. I believe there was a grant from the USDA where they paid them some amount of money, and they are distributing like so many boxes of food to organizations, so that we could be more intentional about giving them out to the communities that we work with and the communities that we know that need them the most. So like those boxes, what that looks like is, every week the amount changes. 1 week we had 900 boxes. 1 week we had 1,200 boxes. 1 week we have 600. This upcoming week, we're actually moving from Monday to Tuesday just for this week because of a conflict in schedule, and we have 600 boxes this upcoming week. So usually, sometimes it's a box of produce and then a box of dairy and then a mixture of like produce, dairy, and meat. But it all differs. It varies depending on what they have available. And as I mentioned before, It's open to everyone and anyone, but like for our community specifically, I am here to like take orders directly from you. If you want to reserve a number of boxes for your members of your organizations and communities, feel free to reach out and I can go ahead and put those to the site before we give out to everyone else.
Yeah, well, I don't actually know any trans or queer people here, really, and I want to be able to maybe add to the boxes or add to the food distribution. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I feel like every time I pop on, it's a different. And how do you? Is it NAR? I don't want to.
Yes.
NAR, thank you. That means a lot because we know there's a lot of like what is it? Food deserts, right? In our communities, the communities we come from and serve, and I want to lift up the Pink Moon Farm, which is led by Grayson Crane, who is a former employee, current
Former full-time farmer now.
Yeah, full-time farmer. It comes from a family of farmers, and who was the economic justice manager at Ingersoll before going full-time, and who was a brilliant organizer. And the Pink Moon Farm has been supporting Swanson with fresh produce to be given to trans women of color, two-spirit folks, trans femmes of color who need produce. And so we coordinate with Grayson and the farm and figure out how to, like, who's going to deliver it to our community members. So it would be amazing to do that work with you. Also, I don't know if you've heard about Feast, which is like a youth-led group that is now led by Jamae Marsh, who is at UW. And they're doing a lot of amazing work. And also they're youth-led around like food security and food sovereignty. And I believe they're in South Seattle, so I would check them out as well.
And did you say Grayson is at Pink Moon Farm?
Grayson, yeah,
Pink Moon Farms.
Pink, okay.
Yeah. You can find them on Facebook and I believe also Instagram. Thank you for that answer. Looks like we just had Kaya drop links to both Feast and Pink Moon Farm in the chat. Thank you, Kaya. Anyone else have any questions? Still got plenty of time. We got another one. All right. Vita again here. I just want to continue to be thankful for all the people hosting on the panel and those contributing to questions. I haven't been to Ingersoll for a while. Does Ingersoll have a POC group again? I remember there had been one, but it was about once a month and then discontinued. Also, I heard on the Trans Pride Seattle this year we're online stream last night the Gender Justice League may be hiring soon, and I plan to apply as soon as they post a job opening. I was laid off due to COVID-19 and my employer wanted me to return to work under unsafe conditions. What advice would you give to trans persons facing unemployment challenges like these, especially during the pandemic? Thank you for your question, Vita. As for Ingersoll part, we do not have a POC group currently as like a monthly part of the support group. What we have started when I got here in 2018 was a bi-monthly trans BIPOC brunch space. So on even numbered month on third Saturdays from like 12:30 to 2:30, community members would get together and go to a Black or Brown owned restaurant and eat their food together. But since COVID happened, we haven't been able to do that. We've been partnering with That Brown Girl Cooks and then dropping off those pre-made meals at different trans BIPOC community members' places around Seattle, and then hopping on the call together and getting to enjoy good food with each other.
I can offer something along the lines of those. So Utopia Seattle does have a cutie BIPOC support group called Real Talk, and we offer it every second Tuesday of the month. If you would like to join, please follow us on our Facebook page. We're constantly putting up our updates about COVID resources, and also because of the high amounts of like Zoom bombings and uninvited people coming in. And we also want to protect our communities while they're in support group and their confidentiality. We decided that there's a registration form, and it's very simple. It's just basically your name and your email so that you can directly get the link to join, and so that no one else outside of our community is joining those meetings. So if you are interested in joining, we would love to have you.
And I'll also give a shout out to another organization, Seattle Counseling Services. They have a Monday meeting called Connections, and it's focused on queer and trans people of color. It's a space for making connections, healing, processing, and sharing resources. If I'm understanding correctly, right now it is virtual because of COVID and everything. But if you head to the Seattle Counseling Services page on Facebook, you should find the post and find all the info that you need there.
Yeah. Also, there is, Seattle Counseling Services is amazing. There is also this national directory of trans therapists, right? Like if you need mental health support and you've been searching for a while and you really want a trans person or a queer trans person, I believe it's called the National Queer Therapist something. I'm gonna look it up now. But yeah, it's a great directory and they're pretty up to date. And I'm assuming that they take some of their data from, local directories such as Ingersoll Gender Center. So they do a pretty good job, and it's all queer and trans people of color, and it's called the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. You can find, they have a mental health fund, they have different ways to get involved. And if you're trying to expand, and if you're someone who's in the thinking of moving, right? Because a lot of our folks have moved out of Seattle because of COVID and because of transphobia, because of anti-Black racism. And so that's a good resource.
So many things.
Thank y'all.
I wanted to add on that I know that many of our organizations on here serve the King County region, but Utopia and Ingersoll has collaborated on putting out another relief fund that we want to center trans and gender diverse Black, Indigenous, and Pacific Islanders in the counties of Pierce, Snohomish, and Thurston. So please, if you know folks in those areas that need financial assistance, they can apply on the Ingersoll webpage. There's a link on there for a fund. It states in collaboration with Utopia Seattle. Thank you, Coco, for adding that on. You're on it.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to the COVID financial assistance resources. Ingersoll does have a few different programs right now. We have funding available for survivors, veterans, and just the general trans and gender diverse community with King County. And then we also have our partnership with Utopia for the community fund. And Coco just dropped the link so you can apply to that. It's in the chat. Thanks, Coco.
Thanks, y'all. There's so much, yeah, so many research being dropped. ISIS also dropped, of course, don't forget our legal org partners, Lavender Rights Project, Q-Law, Disability Rights Washington, Legal Voice, the whole squad.
I have care packages. Utopia has care packages for trans and gender diverse communities. We have like face coverings, hand sanitizers, condoms, lubes, some makeup from Thrive. So please send people our way if they need any, or if you want to put in an order of supplies for them, I can definitely do that with you.
Thank you, Tepa. Utopia is just cranking out stuff. See, another question. What other events or things coming up this week and or in the near future are folks excited for or putting on? I'm hearing a lot of folks trying to connect and would love some spaces to join in on. Great question, Coco.
So, I think everyone on here knows that this past Monday, the Seattle City Council passed an ordinance to repeal prostitution loitering as a crime and drug traffic loitering as a crime. Coalition of Rights and Safety is putting together a letter to the mayor of Seattle and the Seattle City Council to call for a full decriminalization. That our sex worker community will never be completely safe until there's full decriminalization. If you or your organization would like to sign on to that, please reach out to Emi Koyama at Coalition for Rights and Safety. Let me pull up their email right now, and I will drop it into the chat box.
Thank you, Tepa.
Yeah, Vita, the struggle is real. I've been in Seattle for 2 years and I haven't found a therapist. And well, I just found one. There's Bree Chang, who is a Asian trans woman, right? And there's not a lot of trans women in that field. So I would reach out to Bree Chang if you wanna. Highly recommend it and would be a good source.
Yes, I'm also looking for, would have to take me a second, but we were also contacted by two community members or two therapists of color who are providing free online teletherapy to community members and protesters of color who are trans or gender diverse as well. As soon as I find that, I'll drop that in there. Also, Coco had asked, now there's so much in the chat. Are there other actions for that, Tepa, other than signing on to the letter?
Are there any other ISIS that you can think of right now?
Signing on to the letter. Well, there's also uplifting the demands of Black trans folks, right? Mainly the demands of the Washington Black Trans Task Force, which is led by Black trans women and femmes and Black trans folks. And it's being led by Jalen Scott, who is the sole ED of Lavender Rights Project, and who is possibly the first Black trans woman to lead a nonprofit or an organization in the history of Washington. We're gonna say that enough times so that it becomes history. But it's, yeah, I strongly believe that that's the case. Don't call me. But it's true, right? And it's sad that it's 2020 and she's the first. So lift up the demands of Washington Black Trans Task Force. Reach out to them and give them money. Also, like ask them what they need to, keep them safe. As far as, and also resources, whatever. Like listen to them and give them what they need.
Yes, Jalen.
Come on, Jalen. I want to add some other things that are going on for folks to get involved in. Ingersoll will be having another panel going on this afternoon. It's a Community Pillars, a conversation with trans leaders, and that's from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And the link can be found on the Trans Pride events page. And we'll also be holding a community support space tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. on Sunday, where folks can ask questions regarding support that they may need, as well as sign up for 15-minute appointment with Ingersoll's direct service staff, one of which is our wonderful Soli. Event links can be found on our website calendar at ingersollgendercenter.org/events, or on our Facebook page, Ingersoll Gender Center, where folks can follow us for updates and other things that we got going on.
Yeah. Also, this hair looks good, Soli. Looks really, really good. I can tell you just got a haircut, maybe.
Yes. Oh my God. It was down to my butt, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, ancestors, let me just release it back to you. Take some of this weight off.
Ones. I don't want to like leave this call without like lifting up the Taking Black Pride. If you were one of the folks at CHOP saying like, Black Lives Matter, this is where you need to show your support, right? Like show up today. If you are a white person, right? Show up and help. Show up and volunteer. Show up and protect Black folks. If you are a non-Black person, person of color, show up and like step back and let folks lead, but also be there and support as well, right? And make this event a staple, a Seattle staple, because it started, I would say, like less than a month ago. The idea came up around Taking Back Pride because we were tired of seeing Pride being corporatized, and money wasn't going to community, and we wanted to, go back to our roots, go back to remembering the history of this movement and honoring, paying tribute to our ancestors, such as like Miss Major, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Stormy. It's hard for me to pronounce the last name because it's French. I'm sorry. Someone can pronounce it for me. But, like going back to our roots and knowing that community folks have always had the solutions to keep our people safe, to keep our people fed, to keep our people housed. And it didn't require like policing people. It didn't require this big charade of parade that is, not reflective of who we are as communities. So show up, show support, make this a staple, and make it possible for it to come back next year and the year after that and 50 years from now. And it's at Jefferson Park from 4 to 10.
Come on.
Performances. There's comedians, there's artists. There's going to be a mini Kiki with a few houses, local houses. Al's from one of those houses. So show up and support, and show up and be with community, and celebrate Pride the way it was meant to be celebrated.
I will be there giving out some face coverings and some more condoms and some mascaras.
Ooh. Oh. Okay, I was about to say my question was, were there going to be masks available for folks who didn't have them? So okay, ahead of the game. Oh.
Our resident cheerleader wants to say hi.
Hey, Topa.
Another wonderful community member.
Amazing. One of the brilliant organizers, not new to Washington, but who's doing a lot of work, anti-sex trafficking work.
Yes.
Girl, speak for yourself.
Come on, Thrive.
She's getting ready for tonight. She's performing. Also, if you come, you'll see these amazing masks. There's defund SBD. There's also Black Trans Lives Matter. So come out and get them before they run out.
They do. I second that. Coco mentioned bring T-shirts. They'll be screen printing there. Look at community. Everyone in this call playing a role.
I'm so bad at this. So there's gonna be a altar. There's gonna be a area for healing indigenous medicine. There's gonna be artwork. There's gonna be a lot of different ways for folks to plug in, including kiddos and elders. So don't miss out.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
One more thing. I'm so sorry. I want to lift up the organizers of, who have put a lot of work into taking back Pride. Maddie Mooney, first and foremost. I would say Ivana, Lourdes, Lulu, Nikki, Jean Lucas. Is that how you say their name? Jean Lucas. A lot of Gianluca, and a lot of Randy Ford, a lot of different Black trans organizers doing amazing work in this state. So reach out to them.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing all of you there in just a few hours. Okay.
There was one last question in the chat about, will there be a Zoom link for Taking Black Pride for folks who aren't able to make it physically?
We thought about that, right? We know about accessibility. It'll be on the Toxin page, and there are different, I would say local influencers that are using that are streaming it from their own as well to provide different sources of online streaming folks. Thank you for bringing that up.
Teba?
No, I'm so excited to be there and see you all tonight.
I know, I'm loving this. I'm loving all the community space that today is providing. Thanks for dropping the link, Kaya. I did want to drop or go back to Vita. Part of your question was around unemployment. I'm dropping a link in the chat. Ingersoll did an informational webinar with Unemployment Law Center and the Q Law Foundation, which is a lot of just quick tips and general things around navigating unemployment or accessing those benefits as an LGBTQ folks. Specifically around issues that affect trans people more so, dealing with overpayment or issues around fraud because of name change or gender marker or etc. As well as working directly with any of their legal advocates. So if that is support that you or other folks need, that's also a connection that we could provide. Isa said, all the mutual aid funds out there for folks that are being led by trans organizers. Snaps to that. Unemployment Law Project, that's the thing. Perfect. They're great. They are very responsive. Does anyone have any last questions?
Just gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone on here today for all the work that you're continuing to do centering our own communities because no one else will but us.
So, yeah, I think now more than ever has shown how many things are FUBU really need to be. Absolutely need to be. There's no other way to be.
Or like boo-boo.
Okay. Well, folks have any questions or would like to get in contact with Ingersoll, you can reach out to us at info@ingersollgendercenter.org, or me directly, alphonse@ingersollgendercenter.org. And if other panelists would like to drop their contact information in the chat for any of the attendees who would like it, that would be greatly appreciated so we can all stay connected. Oh yes, umbrella, potentially, I don't know. I'm relatively, I would say, still new to Seattle. And I heard it was uncool to bring umbrellas out if you live here, but I just did my hair, so I'm going to be bringing an umbrella. But, you know, hot and wet. It's what's in 2020, apparently. Thank you all for dropping your contact. Kaya, Coco, what were you saying, Isis?
So now let's party tonight.
Okay, we ready to go. It's just the start. Just Saturday. Kaya, Coco, you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm just really full of gratitude and great feelings right now.
Thank you for running tech, making sure people can see all this greatness right here. Thank you again to the panelists for coming today and for all the attendees for hanging out with us and learning a little bit more about what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
To Ingersoll for organizing this.
Can I do a photo? Like, this needs to be like memorialized.
Oh my gosh.
Coco?
Yes. I can't because I'm currently live streaming. Can someone else like pull up grid view and just I don't know, Al, you can hit Command-Shift-4 and it'll do a screenshot of the whole thing, I think.
I can do it.
Cute. Okay.
Oh, hey, everybody, keep going. There they are. Okay, we got some shots.
Cute. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll put it on the Facebook for this event.
Yeah.
Happy
Also, if there's any participants that are like, I really don't want my photo out into the universe, if you chat, like put it in the chat box, I'll make a note of your name and then blur it or black it out for you. So, yeah, I'll hold space for that in the chat for the next like 5 minutes before shutting everything down. Yeah.
Oh my God, noticed that we were live on Facebook.
Oh my God.
I can't do all this at once. I can't keep up. Vita asked, will these conferences be archived? I don't know, Coco. How will people be able to view things?
Yeah, so this video will be live on Facebook, and then I'll probably link it on Ingersoll Gender Center somewhere on the website just for folks to access for the near future. But yeah, it should be available under videos on Ingersoll Gender Center on Facebook.
My agent will be calling.
Thank you so much, everyone. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.